Gremlins are unforgettable. Do you recall any specific inspirations you had while creating them? Excellent question. You know, when I got the first script for Gremlins, it was just a horror movie. There was no gizmo, it wasn't funny, there were no jokes, there was no satire, no parody. Straight out horror movie. I took my inspiration for the Gremlins specifically from the script, from the description in the script, which was not what I wound up with because that description had horns instead of ears and, you know, sort of random monster description stuff. And I wanted to make something that had a bit more character to it, that really was a bit more iconic in a character way, character-driven way, I'll say. Something that once you looked at it, you knew what it was. Its appearance told you what it was. And in early talks with Joe, we were talking about this sort of mischievous kind of character to them. And so that's why the Gremlins are really, they're really cartoon monsters done a little more realistically. And so that, the design stage on that was interesting because I went through some very, very, very rough pencil sketches just to kind of get a basic form. And then I did a maquette, a small maquette, in which I kind of worked out the specifics of the head particularly was key because I knew we were going to wind up doing a whole bunch of hand puppets. And so they had to function as hand puppets, and there are specific restrictions when you're working with just the movement of the human hand. So one of the things that is unique in the Gremlins design is that, if I can illustrate this, is a puppet mouth usually opens and closes like this. So it's very wide, very open. But what that usually does is it pushes the eyes way back. And that's not necessarily a good thing. If you're doing like a Muppet or something that's very soft, you can, build it right straight front up and it's not an issue. The foam is soft enough to do that. We were going to be working with very hard underskulls, so it's a bit different. The mouth has to be big enough, it still has to have that width to open up like that and close because it's a lot more rigid. So what I did was I sculpted it so that the lines around the mouth come way, way, way back, and actually the eyes almost project out over the mouth, just to get that sort of regular structural face there without having to push the eyes too far back and that made it a little bit too animalistic. And the Gremlin is probably the favorite design I've ever done, just because I think it does a great job of being menacing as well as mischievous, and you sort of love them despite the fact that they're horrible monsters. So I love that one. So that was the Gremlin. The Mogwai was quite a bit easier actually. I was looking in the original script. They're nocturnal, so standard nocturnal primate kind of feel. Big ears, big eyes, smaller mouth. So it was those proportions, and it's actually a creature called a tarsier that was my initial inspiration. Sort of like, okay, that's the ballpark I'm playing in, and after that it was. I did a couple of variations for just conversation's sake, really. And then we found like I said, it was pretty easy to get to that initial agreement of like, here's what a Mogwai looks like. The rest of the design stuff happened more on an evolutionary scale, in that the ears were originally furred, and then just before we went into production, I think might have been Steven Spielberg's suggestion that we just have furless ears so we can see little veins inside and stuff like that. And then they were originally all brown, and then Steven wanted to make them sort of brown and white like his, I think it was a pet beagle, I can't remember, but his dog was those colors. So we switched all those out. So it wasn't like a design, there was never a final design until we were shooting, really. And then, and then of course at the last minute they suddenly decide, well, you know what? Let's have one of these Mogwai not change and just become Billy's friend. Which of course, more than doubled the amount of work I had to do. Because suddenly the Mogwai changed from being just these little animal guys to suddenly being a character, in fact, kind of the main character of the film, at least in terms of the puppets. So that was a major, major change for me, and especially as it was pretty much at the last minute. And so it was like, how can we make Gizmo look different from the other Mogwai, but not too different? And I always remembered, I think it was the Little Rascals or something like that. They had a dog named Petey, and he just had a ring around one eye, or both eyes maybe, but I only remember one. So I figured, well, we could just do separate faces with a ring of white fur around one eye, and they're like, great, yeah, that'll work. So that was good. That was an easy, quick fix. And that's pretty much it. They were fun to design, actually. I really kind of had a good time with them, and especially when I did the maquette for the Gremlin, because as soon as I did it, I knew that was it. I mean, I was like, that's it. That's a look. That's a design. That's a creature that you're not going to forget. You're going to look at it, know what it is, and carry that with you. So I was very happy with that. They're still, like I said, Gremlin's my favorite design